And now moving on, today's day 30th of the war, and now there's a fallout. Anti-Trump protests are happening across the United States is what we are learning in big cities and small towns across the country. Thousands have spilled onto the streets against Donald Trump. As you can see on the screen, there are several people there on the street. We are learning, as per few reports, millions there on the street against Donald Trump, his policies, his actions as well. Now, this is being called as No King's protest, and this is the third round of such protests ever since Donald Trump has come to power. But what is the reason behind this? Organizers say that they are protesting against policies imposed by US President Donald Trump, including the war on Iran, ICE crackdown that we've been seeing in the last few months, and the rising cost of living as well. And remember, this also comes in the backdrop of approval rating of Donald Trump also falling to 36% in the last few days, the lowest point since he returned to the White House. So there on the screen, you can see the visuals, the anti-protest rally that is in fact happening across the United States. Let me go across to my colleague Rishabh for more on that. Rishabh, we can see the visuals of the anti-protest rally that is happening in the United States, in big cities, small towns as well, across the country. Thousands have come onto the streets. Take us through what is the reason behind this? What are they demanding?
Well, what we're given to understand, Akansha, that a nationwide protest is taking place against Donald Trump. Remember, this is the third such rallies that are taking place nationwide, be it East Coast or be it West Coast of the United States. These rallies are taking place. And one should understand that while the hinterlands of the United States still are supportive toward Donald Trump, the coast, especially West Coast, has been completely against Donald Trump, be it California, be it San Francisco, be it Los Angeles, or for that matter, Mediata and all these areas. There is a huge, distrust toward Donald Trump, and that's the reason that No King rallies are taking place. What we're given to understand, these rallies are taking place because of the inflation rates and also against Donald Trump's decision to get into a war with Iran. Many in the United States suggest that this is not a war that the United States should be fighting. And when it comes to ground operations, the probability of ground operations, many suggest that that would be suicidal. The approval ratings of President Donald Trump has also at the all-time low at 38%.
Absolutely. Do take us through what people there on the ground are saying, because this comes at a time when billions are being spent every day as far as the war is concerned. In the latest, White House has also saw $200 billion in military funding from Congress in the wake of this war. So what are the people saying there? Because there is a reason why perhaps the approval rating of Donald Trump is also going as low as 36%.
Well, definitely. See, we need to understand something that as of now, there is a crisis of energy supply. US has not been hit by that because they are in a way self-sufficient, and most of their trade happens via Pacific, and hence they are not getting hit by the disruption of supply chain. But US has funded Ukraine's war for the last 3 years, and now US is in a direct conflict here in West Asia, and that is something that is not going down well with the people in the United States. And we have heard it from senators as well who attended the briefing on Iran war, and many came out saying that the objectives of war that were communicated to them while the war began and the objective of war that is being communicated to them after 4 weeks of war is something that is completely poles apart, and the new objectives are not something that they would be very much interested in. And you can see how the administration, Donald Trump administration, is also not united when it comes to Iranian war. Except Pete Hegseth, the war secretary, and President Donald Trump, we haven't seen any vociferous support to this war. J.D. Vance is strategically silent. He hasn't spoken much on the war. Marco Rubio is using very measured statements on this war, and most of the Republicans either have remained silent or have tried to keep a distance from this war And that is something that showcases that the Republican Party completely is not with Donald Trump when it comes to war in Iran. And adding to that, the way living costs have increased in the United States, the inflation have increased, the way job losses have taken place, and the way ICE, immigration activities have taken place in the last 15 months, that have rigged people to come on streets, and that's why we are seeing nationwide protests.
So the Americans are not too happy with Donald Trump. They are protesting against the policies imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump, including the war with Iran, the recent ICE crackdown that we've also seen, and the rising cost of living as well. And hence you can see massive, massive protests there on the ground as far as U.S. is concerned. We have reactions coming in. Listen in.
Trump has to be stopped. And that's what No Kings is all about. Because he can't do all the fucked up things that he's been doing without the collusion of Congress and the goons in his administration. They're bound to him by fear of losing their own jobs, their own power. It's diabolical. Look at the power of the No Kings national uprising. Afraid of Trump? Please. No, they should be more afraid of us.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Because we still believe in the core American values of justice, equality, decency, and kindness. Because we're going from the streets to the ballot box, and because we all deserve a country with no kings, no Trump.
Network, NAN.
Let me once again go back to my colleague Rishabh. Rishabh, it appears that no one is happy with Donald Trump. Americans are not happy. He's been seeking help of his NATO allies. They are not helping him. And now in the latest, he also saw $200 billion from the Congress as far as funding of the war is concerned. He has been getting pushed back as far as that is also concerned. Take us through the details.
Well, if not Vietnam, this Iran war has not been less for Donald Trump. His approval ratings are low. His allies are not helping him. The countries that would agree to whatever Donald Trump would say have started cushioning his call to join Israel in the war against Iran. NATO allies have been pushing back to an extent where, looks like that the communications lines between Europe and Washington have also been very, very disturbed. Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, has just yesterday said that I am a British Prime Minister, and in a clear snub to Donald Trump, he goes on to say that British interests are paramount for me. If we talk about Emmanuel Macron, or for that matter Merz from Germany, or for that matter other countries, Spain or Netherlands, all of them, all these countries who were, part of NATO, and I'm using the word were because NATO, practically looks now defunct, given that the distance that we have seen between US and the European partners. NATO is not coming together against this war. Yes, back in the days when Iraq war began in 2003, there were countries like France who did not support the Iraq war, but NATO did come in support. If not France, the other countries did come in support. In Afghanistan, the whole NATO came in. But here in Iran, we haven't seen any other country directly getting involved in the war. Even the Gulf countries, for that matter, Kansha, who are being bombed day in and day out by Iran, they haven't started any offensive against Iran. And that showcases that Donald Trump is quite isolated when it comes to Iran war. And within the polity of United States as well, the Republicans, most of them are not in support of this war. Remember, what did Donald Trump came to power with? He came to power with calling himself as a peace president. He claims that there are at least 8 wars, including India and Pakistan, that he has halted. But now that there is a war between Israel and US and Iran, there are no mediators coming in. Oman has practically rebuked United States for calling it, quote-unquote, backstabbing, that while the negotiations were on in Muscat, the attack took place. Geneva has taken a step back, and now US and Israel have been left to fend for themselves. And we are seeing that 30 days down the line, Iran is still hitting anything US in the region. Israel is also being attacked day in and day out.
Absolutely, and this is the fallout of the war. Americans are not happy. His NATO allies are not helping him. He's not getting the funding from the Congress there. And now in the latest, as you can see there on the screen, there is massive, there are protests happening across the United States. We'll continue to get you more details on this. With this, a very short break. More news and updates on the other side.